12 hours after my son had passed in a car accident. I was standing alone at my kitchen sink, wondering how to plan whatever needed to be planned, do whatever needed to be done. I had never been through this before. It had never been my responsibility. And as I was worrying about what to do, a light bulb went off. And it completely reminded me of how the other light bulb had gone off at times, and I believed that was my grandmother visiting. This one, I just knew in my heart was Tim. He wanted to connect with me, to let me know that he was safely on the other side and in spirit form, and that we could still communicate. And that my grandmother was involved in this production of theirs was also very meaningful, because she had also lost a son. So it felt like a gift from her too. And once I was talking to Tim as the light bulb was off, I was telling him I loved him and I missed him, and how is this world going to keep on spinning without you? You're such a bright light. You gave so much to this world. You brightened every room you walked into. This isn't right. This shouldn't have happened. But as soon as I was done talking, the light bulb came back on, and I said, okay, and took a deep breath. I can do this. And I went upstairs and got myself ready for the day, and all of the people that would be flooding my home for the next 5 days. I decided curling up in a ball was not for me, and that I was going to be resilient. I knew I would be a role model for all of his friends and the community, and I was going to be strong. And it was a beautiful time where so many tributes came in, so many letters, so many wonderful stories. And the one I really liked the most, that each one lifted me, but the one that sticks in my mind is a woman who wrote to me and said, I'm writing on behalf of my son, Greg, who's a little too shy to write to you. But when your son was a junior, he was a freshman, and Tim approached him alone at a lunch table and said, come on over and join the juniors and sit with us. You don't need to sit alone. And I didn't know that story. And I was just beaming and so proud that he had done things like that. He was kinder than I ever knew, and so humble, because I never knew. So I just felt like I was floating. I felt like there were synchronicities happening. Everything was lining up so easily, until almost 2 years later, we got a phone call that we were being sued. Sued? For what? What did we do? It was the other driver of the flatbed tow truck who had walked home and gone to sleep in his own bed that night, claiming he had post-traumatic stress. And he was going to cure that by suing us, because some money would help take care of that. What? Like, it's beyond believable. What lawyer would take this case? How did this get this far? And the woman on the phone apologized over and over again. And I said to myself, all right, I wasn't going to sue, but if I have to get in this game, I'm going to fight back with everything I have. I just didn't know how to find a lawyer, and I freaked out for about 15 minutes, and then the thought dropped in, this is going to be a gift. And that afternoon, had a lawyer handed to me by a friend. This is the guy to call. Again, just so easily. And I met with him a week later, and a week after that, he said, yes, I'll take your case. And I didn't even have to pay him anything. He believed in it so much, he was going to fund it. And then we were into the weeds of the details, and it was going to start in the fall, and then it was going to start in the spring. And it ended up postponed and postponed for 4 years. It was a really dragged out process that was draining and difficult. But again, I said, I can do this. And I made it my job to do whatever the lawyer needed me to do. So I interviewed other towing companies to find out what they thought about this towing company, and they all said, the police and the towing company are like this. Small town, they're always at the accidents together. So evidence had disappeared, and when neither party was charged, it was very weird, all very weird. Once we got into a couple years in, we found out that this driver had been in jail already before he was 21. He was a drug addict, he was a felon, and he never should have been doing this job. I was still fighting back with everything I had. By the time we got actually into the courtroom, I had confirmation to my thought that this was going to be a gift, because being in the courtroom started on my birthday. And I thought, that's another great sign that I'm going to win. And we did jury selection 6 weeks, and I got to help choose the jury. Again, I was thrilled with being able to participate. And then 5 more weeks of going through the details and the back and forth with 5 lawyers, like between the two sides. And in the end, the lawyer said, when the jury was out, the lawyer said, I'm 93% sure this is not winnable. What? I knew I was going to win from the day I heard about it. And I had watched every sign, and I had seen every piece of paper that came out from the jurors to the judge. And I just was like, how can you think this isn't winnable? I see it. I see winning it. I've always seen winning it. And I had already planned a charitable foundation, and I knew what it was going to do. And so I wouldn't acquiesce. I wouldn't cave. And my daughter and my husband both started saying, let's settle, after the lawyer said, let's settle. And the lawyer's partners said, let's settle. And I was just like, nothing in my body would let me do that. And so I stood my ground the whole time the jury was out. And then came a note out to the judge asking the question that let me know we won. And I had been waiting for that question. And in court, you have to keep your composure, but I was doing the happy dance inside. And so thrilled that I had held my ground and not been pushed by anybody into going against my intuition and my judgment. And it was a celebration. I mean, but it was laugh, cry, laugh, cry, laugh, cry. And I got to meet the jurors. I got to meet the jurors afterwards, and they were thrilled for us. And they let us know that we did the right thing. They said from the room we were sequestered in, we were sending you vibes to not settle. Like, we were so on your side, and we loved seeing you on the stand. And it was one of the best days of my life to have cleared Tim's name and defended his honor, to know that it was not his fault. And then I took on the task of creating that charitable foundation. And it gave scholarships, and it gave grants, and it was amazing. The grants, I let Tim's friends give donations to their favorite charities, and they had a blast with it. And one of them called me and said, "This was the best day of my life." A $5,000 grant to his choice of charity, and he spent the day with them, and he delivered the check. And another one created a home and a school for orphans in Uganda. And the third one I'll mention is that my website woman who was doing my updating for me called me one day and said, "I'm updating, and Lindsay gave to the Home for Little Wanderers." And I said, "Yes." And she started crying. And she said, "I was adopted from there. It was an orphanage." And I just loved all of these magical moments that came together. And I've been thrilled to keep going with Random Acts of Kindness in Tim's honor, and realized, looking back, that the time I had been the most healthy was the 2 years after Tim died, which doesn't seem to make sense, but there was so much love coming at me and so much love radiating from me that I just felt lifted to a place where illness couldn't touch me. And outside of those 2 years, there have been chronic illnesses. There was a toxic family life from my childhood, and there was a not the best relationship in my marriage. But the joy that can come out of even unthinkable times is amazing, and I hope that you can find your "I can do this." I am on a mission to help others know this way of living, this 5D way of living in joy and in your best life and in synchronicity and flow, because it's an amazing place to be. I can do this, and you can do this.